Hey, we are live. This is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Welcome aboard. I got a lot of emails from people, a lot of questions. I'm just going to jump right into some of these questions because I think they're just so pertinent for what's really going on out there in the market. This one here is from a student. His name's Todd. And Todd asks a very, very good question. And I think a lot of you have had this question on your mind. He says, while his likely coverage is somewhere in the course, he just thought he'd send me this email for this Thursday. Does it make more sense to me to purchase my materials by myself or have my subs purchase materials? It's a really good question, and it really depends on the subcontractor. All right, let's start with plumbing. You don't want to purchase all the elbows, all the T's, all the pipe, and all the fittings. You don't want to purchase that because you have no clue what you need. You let your plumber do all the rough, all the underground and all the rough inside throughout the home. What you may want to purchase is all your hardware, your valves, your faucets, even up to your toilets, and possibly even your tankless water heater, or not even just tankless, just regular water heater. These are things they may do a 10 or a 5% upcharge on. You may want to buy those yourself, get a little more control. I just recently had a bid on a job, and my rough-in on the job, just the rough-in alone, was a little over $30,000. Had another plumber do a bid on it, and the rough-in on that job without the water heater, without the hardware, was $16,000. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were hungry and wanting, me as their client, which I understand. Right now, there's an opportunity to grab great subcontractors because they're really new in the business, or they want your business or something like that. I have found, and I'm just going to be honest here, I've had some subcontractors now for a very long time, and they think they have my work. Well, I'm bidding now new jobs, and I probably will not be using about 25 to 30% of my previous subcontractor list because I'm getting better bids from other subcontractors that I like their work, I like their communication, I like their follow through, and I like their ethos and how they run their business. I'm always, just because you got me last time doesn't mean you're going to get me the next time. So I have that attitude, and it's people kind of know that about me. But with owner builders, you typically don't have that. Rule of thumb: don't tell people you're an owner builder. Get a fake email that says Joe and Joe's Upstage Builder at yahoo.com. I don't care the email you get. Just fabricate a little email, and even get a Facebook page that's under the same name if you can. And that's all you need. You don't need all that information. And so you should be able to get some better bids. Let's get back to this email here. What should you buy? You should buy your own lumber. Don't let your framers do your own lumber. I could go through quite cost savings of at least $500 or more by doing it yourself. And if you want the headache, then go ahead.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
We have an electric storm that kind of shut us off here for just a little bit, and we were going off our internet and not our phones. So next time an electric storm comes through, we're going to probably just go off our phones and not our internet. Anyway, if you can't get a sizable savings by buying the material yourself, and you have to decide what that sizable savings is. For example, if it's $300 savings, and if that's good enough for you, then buy it yourself. But if for myself as a builder, I'm looking for a bigger chunk of savings. Otherwise, it's just convenient for the subcontractor to buy all that material. And I don't care if there's a 5 or 10% markup. Take, for example, stucco. I have no clue, to be honest with you, how much sand, how much wire mesh I need, how much paper backing I need, how much mortar cement that I'm going to need, and so that's just a headache. And it depends on how much of a headache you want to go through to get stuff delivered. Now, if you're really sophisticated, and I do this on a lot of jobs, I have accounts set up everywhere. And if I'm really trying to shave money on a job, I will set up an account and I will tell my subcontractor, I'll just get me labor and I will put you on the account and you order the materials you need. And then I'll get billed directly for that information. Or they just tell me how much material they need, then I will go ahead and order it. If you really want to get granular, you could do it that way. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of headache. And I've done that with a lot of different subcontractors over the years. And I'm at the point where you handle it on a lot of things, but not for labor, not for save. And is the headache worth it for you? And do you have the time and to manage that, to actually go through and find out all the material you need and what your waste is going to be from that material. And then if you want to control it that much to some degree, you can. But just be wary that it can wear you out. And that's a good question I have. Here's the other part of that question that the person who wrote this didn't ask me. It says it's not just what to buy, but where to buy it. And I'm going to be honest with you. I love buying local. I love buying from local yards if their service is great, if their communication is awesome. But I'm going to tell you, you're going to typically pay a lot more with local lumber yards, local supply companies, etc., than large box stores. Right now, the box stores are hurting. Everybody's hurting. And the box stores are dropping prices. The lumber now is down in excess of 30% in a lot of areas. And that just is so competitive that local lumber yards can't even compete with that price. Although their prices are down substantially as well. But the large box stores are probably a great place to go for a lot of things. However, you can get things online. All right. Here's a big pile of stuff that just came that was purchased online for a job that we're doing, and it just came today. My daughter's making the selection on those, and I see them come, and she gets excited. We're going to save XYZ on our plumbing, and I get excited about that. I don't have the time to go and make selections, to go out and find competitive prices. That's why you need two people when you're owner building. You need a person on the back end and a person on the front managing the build, and another person managing the costs and the selections and the purchase of everything. And if you have that, you can actually just go to town on savings. My wife's
Yes. What you want to do also is you need to know when to get the stuff, because those are plumbing fixtures, and the plumber needs to know what they need to put in for rough-in. I guess this is something I just learned, is that each brand has their own rough-in. So timing is everything. Make sure you get it before the plumber starts so they have the right stuff.
Yeah, especially for your cartridges and everything in your showers. And if you have hardware that's literally mounted in the wall for a sink, they need to know that before they even do the rough in. So that's why she's actually purchasing that material now. We have a plumber coming on a job next Friday, and he's going to start next Friday. And so we're going to have it all ready to rock and roll for him. So we're excited about that. Plus the tub's already in the garage for a job, and he needs to know where that tub drain's going to be.
Shower drains are going to be anywhere you want it to be, and they'll make it work later on down the road. But the hardware for the wall, actual location for the tub drain, all that kind of stuff, you need that stuff there on the job site. So let's take some questions now. I just thought that was interesting. Again, it's trying to bargain shop is a lot of work. And so if you have two people and one can do the bargain shop and one's managing the build, that's really, really powerful. But as a builder and without any backup, without my daughter and other people that I hire, I couldn't do it. I would just literally, and this is how, if you had to go with the builder, you would ask him, hey, what's your team like? If you go to my website at kelsconstruction.com, you'll see the team I've got. I've got my on-site supervision. I've got framers. I got a designer. I've got my daughter. I got myself. And all these people make up the team for how I build a home with efficiency and a lot of help. If it's just a builder and you don't know who those team members are, then I've driven by a job site up north, and I have not seen the builder at that job site yet. And I've been on my job site, which is just around the corner, and we started roughly at the same time. Granted, I'm building a massive, bigger home. It's a custom home. It's a very luxury mountain home, and he's building kind of a rambler with a patio in the front, patio in the back, really single level situation. But I've not seen him on the job site at all. And so they don't have time for that. A lot of builders are just in the back end at a computer selecting materials and hiring people and sending them on the job, but they're not there at the job. And so I like to be and check at the job, talk with people and work out things and take questions from people, that kind of thing. So anyway, those are something to think about. If you're an owner builder, you want a person on the front end, back end. And it's the same thing with a builder, and the same thing with subcontractors. If you've got subcontractors that are a great team, one's running the back end operation, invoicing and bidding and estimating, and they're very good at communication and scheduling. The other person is running the job. Those are the best subcontractors. They are the best owner builders, and they are the best contractors, general contractors. When you have that that front office and back office operation. If you hire somebody and they don't have a front office and a back office, it's a nightmare. Let's take some questions. Ryan Kowarski. Hey, Brian. Love your videos. What's the most cost-effective way to do wood and wood faux beams on a vaulted ceiling? Should I hire a carpenter to install it and buy all the material myself? Very good question. I'm having to deal with this myself. Here's something to think about. The wood you select is really going to determine the complexity of that particular skill that you're looking for someone to do. On my website at kelsconstruction.com, I've got pictures of some faux beams I did. And if it wasn't for my designer, she's not really a designer. She's just a really good person at sourcing stuff. She does a lot of my counters, cabinets, tile, carpet, flooring, the works, even hardwood flooring, everything. And she sourced out a place in California that actually made those faux beams. And they come from a very prominent, well-known historical figures barn. I won't mention the barn or who that historical figure is, but he was a former president of the United States back in the 1800s, so I'll say no more. And so we had that wood from that barn made into faux beams, and they're just gorgeous. You can go nuts with that, or you can just go get some 2x8 rough sawn wood and glue it together, nail it, glue it, and you have to reinforce it. The question is, should you install it after drywall or before drywall? If it's a beam like that and it's wavy and it's really complicated to get drywall in there, you may want to do it after. However, we did it and it was a beam like that, wavy, and we actually installed it before drywall, and I made my drywallers score right into it. It was not easy. Took a lot of time, big scaffolding, but it looks really sharp to this day. I like to install mine before drywall because I like to secure it as sturdy as I can to the frame structure so they don't have any gaps and stuff like that. But really, carpenters can do it. It's not that hard. It's the material you select and how complicated. If it's all warped and bent, that's going to be different. If it's straight runs, that's great. I wouldn't use very, very heavy stuff. It's harder to install and it can have some sagging over time.
maybe some cedar, lightweight cedar. I wouldn't do anything in oak. That's really brutal. Even if it's just planks you're cutting and mitering to put in perfectly. But there's a lot of stuff online for that. I'm not a fan of foam and painting it a certain way and installing that. It looks real, but that is an artist. That's a skill set that I don't have, and that's not a very common skill set. So I'm sorry if I'm belaboring this, but that's a good question. It really is the material, and if the carpenter can handle that material, and if he can put those together, I think you're on top of it. Let's take the next question. Golden Bird Brain. Hey, Patty. Good to see you here. Can you share your opinion on foundation wall damp proofing versus waterproofing for a dry climate? Colorado 8,300 elevation. Damp proofing is to code. Yeah, I think one is more secure about permanently holding water out. That's the key. The real key is, are you doing a basement or a stem wall? One of those two, and how deep are you going, and what's your final grade, and are you below the center line of the street, or are you above the center line of the street? Do you have the possibility of water coming toward you from other parcels, or are you draining away from yours and into other people's parcels? It's really, that's question is really, how much information do you have about the parcel you're building on? I would go with the most secure elimination of keeping water out as I possibly can. But here's one simple trick. Let's say you're doing a basement, all right? A foundation wall, looks like you're doing a basement foundation, is when you do the footing and then you do the foundation wall on top of that, you pour your slab after all that, not before. So if you pour your slab after that, then guess what? You can actually build up 2, maybe 3 inches of road base inside that, over the footing, compact it, get it the right elevation you need. And then you pour your slab on top of that. That could be 3.5, 4.5, 5 inches or so. And now what happens is when water's draining on the outside and it wants to work its way down, it has to wick up 4 inches to maybe even higher than that, and then inside the home. The worst thing you can do is pour your slab at the same elevation as the foundation wall is. So if your footing is here and your slab is the same level, and you pour it at the same level as your footing, and your foundation wall is really on top of that, you've got a cold pour joint, and that cold pour joint can leak right through, and you've got some problems. There are some things you can do about it. I've actually done builds where it's just a complete monolithic slab on the basement. They pour the whole thing, the slab, the footings, all at once, and then they pour the wall on top of that. But there's a product you can put right inside that wall that it's kind of a wavy product, and you put it right in the wet cement, and it comes up about 3.5 to 4 inches. And then as the concrete is being poured on there, that stays rigid. So again, if water comes in through the cold pour joint, or again from the slab to the foundation wall, it's got to wick up. It's got to come up. And typically water follows the path of least resistance, but it's not going to do that. It's going to continue down. If you've got a good percolation in your soil, it's not going to wick up. It's going to do its thing. I hope that is a little complicated there, but I just wanted to help you understand water doesn't like to go uphill. So if you're making water go uphill over that little ridge, or if your slab is 3.5, 4.5 inches high above the footing, it tends to not want to go uphill, provided you have sufficient drainage, sufficient percolation, your slope is perfect, and you're high and you're not below a water source of any kind. Keeping that slab as high as you possibly can, making water go uphill, that's your trick. So next question. Camelia, what was the name of the engineer you mentioned last week? That would be Jeff Hedman. He's in the program in the download section under architects, engineers, and suppliers. Just download that file in the download section and you'll see Jeff. He's licensed in 30, 49, 42 states, somewhere around that. And I've got 2 others that are licensed in the rest of the nation. And they wanted to say they appreciate all of you, and they all appreciate the work you're sending them. So they're great. Prices are great. And check out Jeff. Try V. We are planning on installing a pool. Should we do it simultaneously with our house building or after house is completed? At the same time, especially if you have a hard time getting access to the backyard. You can do an economy of scale, and you can work with the pool company and say, tell you what, I've got an excavator. He's going to do this. He can do the pool at the same time. What would it cost you? And is there a savings if we just get it done and you just work with him on that? Or it may be the pool company's excavator who can do a bit on the excavation of the home. Do all the footings like that. I've got one of those coming up. I have to do it at the same time because I will not be able to get heavy equipment back there. And I've done that. I've done pools like that where I was so confined. The first thing we dug was the pool. And it solved for a lot of headache and it was ease of access. Just imagine the house built and you're confined in space. How are you going to remove all the waste? How are you going to get out of there? Is it more complicated or not any more complicated? So that's the deciding factor, is how easy it is to get rid of the material if the house is built versus if the house is not built. So, and if you're going to jackhammer and through solid rock and you're going to cause all that shaking to the home, even blasting, you might want to. I've done that where I've had to go right into rock and I had to do some jackhammering, and that would have done a number on the foundation on the home. I didn't want to do that, so I wanted to do the pool first. So these are things to think about. Okay, next question. Let's see here. Let's see here. Next question.
Right there. Does this up?
Oh, it's up? Okay. Does self-managed course, I didn't see it come up, I'm sorry. Cover order of operations, i.e. which items, products to install in what order to avoid mistakes further down the road? Yes, it's in the chart. It's in the, what's that chart called? The flow chart. It's a multi-page flow chart. And I keep updating that because I learned something new about a different type of product. And then I add that in there, and it's good for slab, stem, and basement foundation. So it has all that flow in there. It's in the download section, I think. I can't remember where that is, but it's the flow chart, and check that out. It's phenomenal. It's very detailed. A lot of detail in there. So 5 crazy monkeys. Hey, 5 crazy monkeys. Excavators are asking for the corners of the home to be pinned. Is this something I could do myself? I could easily measure off the property survey pins. If you have the survey pins for the property, okay, and then you take a string from corner to corner if the lot's not that big, and then you can pull markings off of that string and mark your corners, but mark your corners with white. I know that sounds funny, but white is what you mark for excavation. Yellow is gas, red is this, blue is that. All the different paints mean something. And so the white markings pulling from, say, 25 feet on that string and 25 feet on that side, and you mark where your corners are going to be, and you've got your front setback, and you've got your rear setback. And if you mark your corners, you can. But here's something to keep in mind. I would tend to mark 5 feet beyond the corner, and you indicate 5 feet and tell him that the corner is within 5 feet or cut 5 feet. The reason being is because if you have a surveyor come, and you can do this with stakes too. If you have a surveyor come, they're going to come and survey the corners of the home, but they're not going to put a survey stake exactly where the corner goes because that's going to get destroyed. I told my surveyor to go ahead and mark the corners, but do a 10-foot cutback. What that means is that, let's say, for example, this here is the actual dimensions of a home. So I have him put a survey mark here, 10 feet from this corner, and a survey mark 10 feet from this corner. And I mark on that stick, and I have it face that corner. I have this stake face this corner, and I say cut 10. And they're gonna cut 10 from the stake here and get back to that corner. They'll cut 10 and get back here. And with the 2 points, they'll get that corner of that lot. That way, the stakes or the white paint that's out there on the dirt, it can stay there. Typically, it's not going to get destroyed, at least not that soon, especially while doing excavation and stuff. And you can put stakes out there. It'd be nice to put a stake there. And let's say your property line is way up here and you measure back, and this is 25 feet. And then you cut 10 feet and you put a stake. And you have a string over here and you measure it all the way back from the distance, because the plot plan will indicate the distance where this corner is based upon the property over here. Then you cut back 10 feet, put a stake there, and you can do it slowly. If you have all the property pins that are in place, you just take a stake up where that pin is, and you pull a string line, and then you put a tape measure on that string line, and then you can do your measurements for your setback. You can do that if you have those property corners. If you do not have those property corners, but you still feel confident, like a lot of you build in an acre or 2 or 5 acres, that's just going to be very costly to have that surveyed. If you know exactly and you're really confident and you feel comfortable with the neighbors, you can do your string lines and measurements from the fence if there's an established fence and everybody has an agreement that that is the property line. So hope that answers your question.
Could he do it himself then? Okay.
Yeah, you can do it yourself. Save the $1,500. Save the $2,500. I only use surveyors in very, very, very tight situations where I literally am on the edge, but I need to be on the edge. So I've talked about this quite a few times on the videos with YouTube, but it's nice to reiterate, to go over it again. Parker Nash, thank you for the lender list in your program. I just used one of the new ones to purchase our land, and they had much better rates and options than our local CUs, credit unions. It made all the difference. Great. We keep adding to that list. I'm glad that helped you out quite a bit. Let's see. Okay, 5 crazy monkeys. I've done plumbing before and remodels and basement finishing. Is it worth doing the underground and rough plumbing myself? Is it on a slab? If it is on a slab, I wouldn't do it. And here's why. If for some reason you messed up, that's all on you. It's all on you. But if a plumber messes up and they're licensed, insured, and bonded, and et cetera, it's all on them, and it's under a slab. Now, granted that you're going to do a headwater test, and you're going to go, hopefully, with the local permitting office. If they do test that, they're going to come on a job site and make sure there's no leaks in that pipe. But they don't test that after it's buried and after the slab is poured. Somebody could puncture that and mess it up, and then they're liable for that. That happened to me on a job. Somebody put a Titan screw right through the 2x6 wall and went right into the pipe, and it leaked. And had I done that, I'd have to tear out the concrete. I'd have to fix the pipe. I'd have to test it again, recompact everything, and pour the cement. That's something you don't want to have to risk. So that's why I, as a general contractor, I can't do my own plumbing. You may not believe this, but I can't, even on all my jobs, I'm not a licensed plumber. I'm not a licensed HVAC contractor, and I'm not a licensed electrician. Those are the 3 I just don't touch. I'm a general contractor. I can do framing. I can do everything else, but legally I can't do those unless I went off and got my master's or certification in those arenas. And then some of the areas are things that I just don't touch either. Like gas, I'm not certified in gas, so I don't touch it. So these are things that you want to weigh very, very carefully and say, I'd rather have somebody take the liability. They've got the insurance for it. They got the bonding for it. I'm going to let them deal with that. Just keep in mind, being an owner builder and being the general contractor on a job site, that is already your biggest savings, right? You're already going to save 40, 50, 60, 80,000, 150,000. I know some students that are saved over 200,000 by being their own owner builder. That's big right there. Be happy. Be happy with that. And don't be a DIY biscuit head. So, okay. Think 41C. What's the difference between your 1-hour coaching call and the 12K consulting option you offer? Love these streams and thank you. That's a good question. The coaching is really what I'd recommend. I do consulting. I do a handful of those a year. And those are for students that know absolutely nothing, really need a lot of communication. I've had students that have been in their 60s, a woman, even a man who was in his 80s, and they were just scared and they just wanted to, hey, can I send you a bid? Can you look at it? And I look at the bid and I go, you need to stay away from this guy. This guy is a nightmare. And I just give them my honest feelings, and they have that kind of access. And one of the things I do with that consulting is I look at their budget, I look at their plans and all that. But with consulting, I can cover a lot of ground in an hour. You know, send me your plans, send me your perk test, send me your, if you have a lot of that ready, we can go over it. I say, hey, I found this on your plan. Let's go over that and that kind of stuff. And I've had some students that do the 1 hour once or twice, and sometimes 3, and it save a buttload of money. To me, I would do that. But if you want some hand holding, I've got 2 right now that are wanting to be GCs. And they're using that consulting, the forever access consulting, to really get them up on their own feet and be a better GC. And so to me, and to them, it's just their education. But yeah, it's really up to you, up to what people need. I only take a handful of the long-term consulting, but I do the 1 hour all the time. To me, I reach a lot of people that way, and it's more affordable and it helps them out. 5 Crazy Monkeys, when should windows be ordered? I have seen some are 30 days out. Really good question. You want to talk with your framer, and you want to have them arrive the day before they're almost done. So if they're going to be done on framing on a Thursday, you want to have them come on a Wednesday or a Tuesday so they can take the windows and lean them up inside the garage. Hopefully you have a garage. They're going to tie those windows up and lean them up against the wall and tie them up so they're all secure. So the framers are ready to rock and roll and install the windows when they're done. Now, I always make my framers install windows. And I make them include that as part of the package of the framing. I just recently got a bid, and he said, blah, 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 and we'll do it for this, and it excludes window installation. I emailed him back. I says, I'll accept this if you add window installation and front and rear door installation. They did. They didn't change their price because I knew they wanted the work, and so I got that as part of the whole deal. But you don't want to have them come back. Oh, we'll have windows come back in a week or 2. They may have a job that's 50 miles away. Don't do that to subcontractors. Get those windows and get them there the last second to the last day, probably even the 4th or the 5th to the last day of their framing, and have it come right into the garage. And they're ready to rock and roll. Make sure you get your screws and your caulking and all the materials you need for them to do that. Okay, just a 2-part question by Spencer. I won't try to say that last name, Spencer. Spencer L. All right. Thanks for all you do for owner builders, Keith and Melissa. My wife and I are building a home on a 3-acre lot, roughly 250 by 585. That's not bad. That's a pretty big lot. That's almost an acre.
It's 3 acres.
That's 3 acres. Wow. From the front part of the lot is elevated, then slopes down with the rest. 2/3 flat. Okay, that's not bad. We like to build in the lower section. Are there any cautions about building in the low spot versus the higher elevation other than needing a septic pump? Yeah, I try to stay away from that septic pump. If your power goes out, that septic pump is going to stop. So that means you do not want to use the bathroom at all when the power goes out. Just want to let everybody know that, unless you have a generator that kicks on and then it covers for that. That's why I try to avoid putting a septic pump, period, on any of my builds. I would try to not build on the lower section, but it may be beneficial and more appealing to the build of the home. One of the things I would kind of watch out for is, does that run into a higher water table possibility? And can you suddenly drain the rest of the lot into the home? Keep in mind, in order to pass inspection on most build sites, most permitting offices, you're going to have at least 10 feet of positive slope, 10 feet. Some permitting offices will go 5 feet or 6, but most are at least 10 feet at a 1% slope. In a mountainous area like I'm building, it had to be a 2 or 3% slope away from the home. Someday I'll have to walk you through the headache I just recently went through. And so if you don't have that slope, even though you're low on the parcel, if you don't have that drainage away from the home, you can have a serious problem. So make sure you have that positive slope away from the home, even though it's on the lower part of the parcel. Okay. Kai, our build requires Energy Star, and the builder of the home must be an Energy Star partner and must go through the online orientation training. Can I do this, an owner builder? I'm certain you can find out where that certification is. It's not that hard. There are all kinds of certifications out there. I could be a certified in this and certified in that, but I don't. Trying to keep up with that certification is kind of a nightmare. I have enough headache maintaining my certification as a GC in my state, and my state's one of the toughest in the nation, and so that alone keeps me hopping. But you can research it and find out. It may cost you a fee, and if it's going to cost you $200 or $300 just to pay the fee to get the certification, I'll just go hire someone to do it. So again, these are that savings things. You have to say, oh, I got this much time, but it's going to take me this much time just to save that much money. And so you have to weigh your time factor and where to really put your time to save the best for what you really want to get done. But that's weird that you have to be certified in Energy Star. I've never seen that.
Really weird.
That's kind of Energy Star is
Is it
applied to
HOA?
it's applied to appliances for the most part, and partially to some HVAC, but it's mostly windows and appliances. And being certified in it, if the appliance says this is 5-star certified, it tells you already that it's certified. Why do I need to be certified? To verify that that's certified, but it's already been verified. I'm pointing to a fridge.
Okay.
So kind of weird. Jonathan, are polished concrete floors cheaper than tile? Good question. Depends on the concrete guy and if you're trying to hide something. Epoxy floors can be kind of pricey if you go with a full-on decor look and swirly colors and stuff like that. But if you go with a clear coat, it shouldn't be more than tile. You might want to just bid both. But here's something to keep in mind. If they're going to epoxy or clear coat that concrete, all right, after framing and after the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and all those mechanical guys are done, just before or just after insulation, just before drywall, you tell your drywaller you want the entire floor plastic and you want it covered, because the fine particulates and the mud from the drywall will get into the concrete. And I'm sorry, you're not going to get that clear coat. You're not going to get that clean look you've always wanted to. And then the epoxy or the clear coat is not going to bond. You have to acid wash the entire floor, and it's not fun, and it stings the eyes, and it's brutal on the lungs. You have to acid wash the entire floor just to get it clean enough so that you can get the bonding on it that you want. And that's where some of the cost is. So on all my homes that I do, even if it's a slab or framed stick built or a subfloor that's 3/4 inch subfloor, I demand all my drywallers, I hate drywall. I demand all my drywallers to cover the whole thing with plastic. And when they're done, we pull up all that plastic and then we cover everything. When the flooring is done, we cover it all with ram board, which is kind of a really thick cardboard. And we cover it all with that. I'm very anal with making sure that I keep that stuff off. I hate cleaning it. I can't stand it. LDT Gaming, I am looking to do my first owner build by following your advice. Where would be the best place to start? First steps for owner builders or self-managed? Take the self-managed or purchase the self-managed package. It includes the first steps course, okay? Or you can just take the first steps course, but remember at the very end of that course, there's a coupon code for the self-managed course. But I would just take the self-managed course and the first steps course comes with it and start there. Easy peasy. Ryan Kowarski. Hey, Ryan. Thanks for the amazing answer on the faux beam. What about doing kitchen cabinets? Is there a trick to save money on kitchen cabinets without breaking the bank? You can save and then you can be upset you did. Cabinets are a range. Okay, let's say A kitchen you can do for 14,000, but somebody said they'll do it for 18. Another one says 22. Another says 34, and another one says 85,000, and another one says 104,000. Okay, if you go with the cheap, you are going to get what you pay for. And every time you get cabinets bid, you're going to see that kind of a range. It doesn't matter. You go with the high end in the community, you're going to go with the low end in the community. You're going to see that kind of a range. What you need to do is to find out their quality. See what kind of quality you can really put up with. I've done cabinet makers, likable guys, sweetheart guys. One was a friend of mine, and he really messed up my cabinets real bad. And I'd never hired him again, and he's not in business now to this day. And all because I got suckered into a low price. And you can get suckered into that, and then you're gonna suffer from it to this day. And you're not gonna like it. You're gonna hate it.
And your wife won't be happy.
Yes. And they're gonna not be. I've got a drawer right over there that's not deep enough. And it just upset me that I never followed through to get it done. It's just not deep enough. It comes out like that deep, and I got that much drawer, but the cabinet's like that deep. And it's just an irritating thing. And why have an irritating thing indefinitely? And so if you want to pay for that, you're going to pay for it. So, Camille, when I've talked to local lumber yards about floor trusses, they tend to be negative and push I-joists, citing no leeway if things need to be adjusted on the field. Our house will be rectangular. No leeway. That's because they don't come up on the job site and measure before they manufacture them. That's the problem. And they don't want to, and that they're lazy, and they're probably not a truss yard. You want to go with a truss yard, a truss plant. I just did a video on this. It came out, when did it come out? 2-3 weeks ago. I did a complete tour of a truss plant. And just about every good truss plant will actually come on the job site, measure the chalk lines or measure the walls where they are, and then they'll build the trusses for that dimension. And then when that's built up, they'll come measure the walls again for the roof trusses. And then you're rocking and rolling. And if they don't want to do that, they're not worth their weight at all. That's the problem. And you're dealing with a lumber yard that's kind of lazy, and they want to go off plans. They don't want to go off what's actually measured, what's on the job. Things change. You could be off a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch. And there are some floor joists that only need 2 inches to land on. That's all they need. If you're off by 3/4 of an inch, or even a 1/2 inch, that's not going to pass engineering. So that's why they have to be accurate. And then on a home that I'm going to do a video on, I made my framers do an 8-inch wall because I had engineered floor trusses, and I pushed the engineering all the way into 3 inches here and 3 inches there, even though I only needed 2 inches. Guess what? I now have 2 inches of play. I can actually shift the whole thing this way or that way. If I went straight up with what the engineer required, which is 2 inches, that means I couldn't shift the whole thing. I couldn't do that. So I went overkill and made sure I had 1 inch on each floor truss, and I could move them this way or that way. Luckily, they came up, measured it, and they had it perfect, dead on. And so you really want to get them on site. And they can do that just with a chalk line. Have your framer go up there and chalk line the pad if it's a slab on grade. If it's just a foundation wall, they can chalk line it. And they can go off the actual measurements of the chalk line. They don't need the walls up. A good truss plant, if it's engineered floor trusses, they'll come up and measure everything on the chalk line on the slab or even on the top of the wall. And they're ready to rock and roll. They don't even need the framing to be in place, because the framing will just come straight up from there. Okay, Oleg, Keith, would you recommend any special insurance for the time of construction? Just a good policy. I've got a great insurance company, Summit Insurance. They can service anyone in the nation. He goes around the nation and he speaks at all the major builder shows and talks about all the different coverage you need and what it is. They're in the download section. I don't get anything from that, and he can't legally take anything or give anything to me for that. I just found him. He's my insurance agent. but he's in the download section under architects, engineers, and suppliers, and go to there and find that and contact. Just mention How to Build Your Own Home mentioned you. It's nice to know where their business is coming from, and you'll get all that you need from there. Okay, Wes. Home in Lakeland, Florida, between Tampa and Orlando. What do you think of having vented attic? But as attic trusses, they are heavily insulated inside, so I can run my ductwork in conditioned space. The attic trusses are like that much. It's like 11 7/8, and you've got to fit all your insulation in there. The only ventilation you'd want to do, if you did do ventilation, is it's not a bat, but it's a baffle, and you can get them in any box store. It's like a foam or even a cardboard box. That baffle is like 1.5 inches, and you staple them in there, and that 1.5 inches comes all the way down that rafter and down outside the eave and all the way down to where the soffit is down there. And if you did do ventilation, it's just something simple like that, and then you just spray foam the bottom of that. I did that on a video recently. If you look back on the central job that I built, we just did that on a couple of homes, only because of the heat getting so hot in a small little attic, and it had a place to go. I'm in favor of venting, although some places are against it. You're in a very high humid environment, and if you have any leaks or what have you, or moisture possibly building up in that attic, if for some stupid reason somebody vented your dryer vent and went right into the attic, you're going to build up all kinds of moisture and mold up in there. So if there's any possibility of any stagnant moisture sitting in the attic and it's not going to dry off, then ventilation is a plus. But it's really up to you. I do it to keep the temperature down in the attic. I live in the desert, and so my attics can get up to 140 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't need that heat pushing down on the top of the ceiling. I want it escaping out as much as I possibly can. So I do it to vent heat is what I do. So if you have some hot temperature zones in Florida, it might be advised to try to get some ventilation that keeps them cooling down in the attic. So. Camille, you've mentioned before to buy lumber and most materials for framers, but let them provide their own hardware. How should this be worded in specs, contracts, and how to make sure they are using the correct hardware? I think it's in the download section. There's specifications for bidding sheet. You can download that, cut and paste that when you send out for bids. And I did the major subcontractors. I didn't do all the minor ones, but there's like 15 to 20 major subcontractors where you just cut and paste that. You can tweak it and add it any way you want. But when you're getting a framing bid, ask them to handle all their hardware, meaning all their nails, not their Titan screws, not their J-bolts, not their washers and plates, nothing like that, but the nails, which would include their 16 penny framing nails, their Tico nails, that kind of thing. Because they can supply that, and I make them supply it. And so just all the framing nails is all you need to have on there. Not the hangers, not the Simpson tie downs, not the straps, stuff like that. Your framing lumber package will cover that, but they can cover all the nails. 5 Crazy Monkeys. On the survey pin question, I asked, is it okay to do the same for the foundation corners after the excavation is done? I was told the process is repeated when the forming stem walls needs to be accurate. Yeah, you can do it again. So if the excavator damages all that and it's kind of messed up, you can come out and restake it and re-put them on there. It's not a problem.
For the foundation corners?
Yep. You can do that. And just tell them it's the accurate corners, no setback. It's the actual corner of the home. Okay, Kaihun, which assembly would you prefer to stucco? A zip R9 or zip plus Rockwool semi-rigid bat? That's not a hard question. All right, I would go with the Rockwool. In fact, I'm doing that on a job. I've ordered a product last week. I should get it here in a week or two. It's coming from a company in Canada. I'll be doing a video on the product. We're doing 1.5 inches of rigid, semi-rigid mineral wool from a company in Canada. Watch for that post to come on YouTube. I'm very excited about it. So I've always wanted to wrap a home in rock wool. I'm going to get my chance. So I'm excited. I'd do that over zip any day. Miguel Roman, do you know how one can get the city to build a road to your land? And who in the city is the most important person to talk to about building process? Really good question. The only way they're going to do that is if it's not on a private drive. If I was on a job, when was it? About 2 months ago, and the county was doing road improvements, all right? And they only manage the existing road as it is. Well, the subcontractor or the contractor putting in road improvements asked my client, do you want an approach put in? And we said, how much is it? It's $5 a square foot. And we said, no, we just didn't have the money for it. But typically, the county, once they put in an asphalt road that's in a subdivision, then the county maintains it. I've been building in 2 subdivisions right now, and they're both county roads, but they're dirt roads. They will not pave those roads until everybody in the subdivision pays for the initial upfront cost of putting that in, which is what a developer would have to pay for. Once the developer puts in that road, or all the landowners put in the initial road, then the county typically will take over responsibility to maintain that, putting in new slurry when you need to, taking it up, putting new road on, 15 years later, that kind of thing. And you might want to, if you're looking into buying some land, does it have the road already improved? And if anything, they may just do the approach into the parcel, but they will not go into the parcel. And they'll subcontract that out to other people. So just go right to the subcontractor and ask them how they would do that. Now, if you have an easement that they need access to, there's a power plant behind your property and they can't get access to it as effectively as they can through your property. You say, hey, you go negotiate something. If you have something like that, you might be able to negotiate something with them, but most of the time you can't.
Who do you talk to? Who's the most person?
That person would be community development, land development, infrastructure. You just ask the question and they'll give you the right person. So in my permitting office, my county, it's called community development, but it could be called something different in your area. So Jose Perez, building in Orlando, Florida with trusses. My builder says all his homes are spray foam ceilings, but my architect mentioned that moisture can get stuck back there and to use rock wool instead. Listen to your architect on this one, not that builder. He's doing it because it's quick and slick, but it's got a future problem, and I would never put spray foam under the deck of a roof. I would never do it. Spray foam is going to be the Achilles heel for current builders today, as lead paint was, or as asbestos was back in the 60s and 70s. A lot of builders paid for it in the 80s and 90s when they were sued and fined. And I really do believe that foam is going to be that kind of a nightmare down the road for people. Just imagine a fire, okay? And that fire comes into the home, but they were able to save it for the most part. But that foam all melted and it got underneath the deck. I'm sorry, there's too many problems I see with spray foam. And I don't see any benefit. Just because it has a higher R value still doesn't cut it for me. Rock wool will stop that fire, slow down that fire. It's not going to spread. It's mold proof and fireproof. It's got all the benefits. Shove some rock wool underneath there and put some netting on it and staple it and hold it in. It's not going anywhere. And then the whole roof is going to breathe. Why not do that? To me, that's the big plus with rock wool. Okay, Swan Lake builds. City requires energy calcs with ARC and structural plans for permit. confused how energy calcs can come back from AC company when they don't know about the installation plans, windows types, etc. Go to an installation company and ask them to give it's what you need. They will do the calculations on it, and it will give you a red line that passes, a green line that passes, and a red line that doesn't. And that's all you need. Ask for your installation company if they can give what the city's wanting. Now, keep in mind, every city has their own terminology for it. Okay. And mine is, I forget the name of it. It's called, I forget the name of it. It'll come to me as I'm talking. And that your installation company will do that. And you give them the plans, you give them the windows you want to use, and they should be able to run those calcs. I used to have my architect do it, but they don't do it anymore. Installation companies are doing it more and more because they charge a fee for it, and plus they're better adept at doing it than some draftsperson or architect. So contact and then if not, your installation company, a blower door test company can run those for you and see if they can do it. But there are other subcontractors that are more equipped to do it than your draftsperson or architect. Try those, ask around. 5 Crazy Monkeys, why does the driveway get poured after the house is mostly done? And is that something worth DIY? I wouldn't DIY that. Here's a piece of thought.
Why?
If you do asphalt on a job, all right, I would do 1 inch of asphalt sometime at the beginning. And then when it's all done, they can come back and do the 2nd inch and it's all clean. All right. But I don't like to do asphalt or concrete until the very end of the job. And here's why. All right. I like to have subcontractors come to a job site and drive over that drive over and over and over again. Drive over, and they are compacting it and compacting it. And I make sure that I get some, 3 inches or 6 inches of road base on that complete drive. So assuring that I don't have any utilities that I have to cut through it. I don't have any septic that's going to be in the way, gas, power, water, etc. They're all done. Assuming they're all done, I hurry and make sure that I get road base in there. I make sure all my subcontractors drive on it, compact it. The worst thing you can have is have someone come and put that slab of concrete on there too soon, and I've got settling that's taking place, and I got a big, huge hole underneath the slab, and I got some cracking, and I've got some settling. I'm very particular about making sure that I have is like on a job site up north in the mountains, I've got about 6 to 10 inches of road base. All right, compacting. Guess what happened with the recent rainstorm? I had a washout. There was a big boulder underneath all that, and it settled down below, and it caved right there. And that's why. And now I've recompacted it. And more rains come, I recompacted it, so that when I'm ready to put either asphalt or brick or concrete on there, I know what kind of foundation I've got. I'm really confident in that. The problem is when you build a home and you want to get that drive in too soon, you've loosened so much dirt on that job site. You really don't know how well or how ineffectively compacted that soil is. And just go to any job site around the home, when they backfill against the home, you see caving in like that because they didn't compact it properly. So that's why I wait till the last minute. However, if you're in a high mountain area and you're dealing with a lot of mud and it's hard to get up to the job site and it's got a steep incline, I go ahead and I avoid the dirt, I avoid the mud, I'm not tracking it into the house, and then I do the 2nd inch later on. And so I can see why you want to get it done, because you're tracking so much garbage into the home. And if that's the case, then think about what I just said. But you can avoid that too with some large aggregate. Throw in some road base, and then come in there with 2 to 4 inch aggregate and throw it on there. And you're only walking on rocks, which is kind of unsteady, but you're not going to track in a lot of mud as you come inside the home. It's kind of like a track pad. A lot of build sites have a track pad. It's 3 to 4 inch aggregate right at the approach before you come into the job site. And as you leave the job site, it's rubbing off all the mud on the truck, trucks as they leave and enter, so it's not tracking it out inside the public roads and stuff like that. It's the same thing on your job site, trying to keep it so that subs are not going to track stuff in. And if any of you are looking to break ground now, and you're going to actually you're going to continue the build through the winter and even into the spring, you're going to know what I'm talking about. That thaw mount and that snow and tracking it all. Plan for it in advance. I think so far in advance on stuff like that, it's really a particular thing with me. Okay, next question. RJ, what's the average construction timeline from start to move to ready for doing your own GC for the first time? My first time was 4.5 months, but that's because I had a front of the office and a back of the office. If it's just you, double that time. So if it's going to be 6 months, it's going to be 12 months for you. If you're all alone and you're the person doing the budgeting and selections and materials and estimating and all that, and you're on the job trying to manage it, it's going to take you a lot longer. So just keep that in mind. But the average for the average owner builder is around 10 months, whereas an actual GC would get it done in 6 or 7. I do very high-end custom homes. I'm around 8 months because of the complexity that I build homes with. And a lot of my clients know that. But I just finished a very affordable home. I did it in 6, kind of a low-income home. We started in December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Yeah, about 6 months. But we started in the winter with some frozen ground. I wouldn't recommend that. I won't do that again. I could have got that done in a month less, or even a month and a half less time had I done it right, but I couldn't. I was stuck with what I got. So
I don't know what he means by that.
J manual.
Okay, I'll move on.
I don't know what that means. RJ, interesting. J manual and RJ. For 2-story houses, do you usually see 2 HVAC units or one with zone controls, approximately 1,500 square feet each floor? That's going to be 2 with that size of home. If you got 1,500 square down below and 15 up above, that's going to be 2 units.
You'll be glad you zoned it.
And you're going to be glad you did it that way. Otherwise, you're going to be paying, wow, that's going to be very costly. That machine, if you try to do that like a 5-10 unit, that thing is going to be running all the time.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do that. So,
Okay.
BBB, do you normally have subfloor over concrete in basements, basement floors to insulate them, or just put LVP carpet directly? I just put the flooring right on it. I don't put any subfloor on there. That's just barking up the wrong tree. And if I was to do anything in the basement, I like tile and LVP. I don't like hardwood floor, and I don't like carpets in basements. Basements are colder, they're cooler, they're more apt to have moisture, condensation settle. And so whenever I've done demos, I've never pulled up a carpet in a basement that smelled good. They always smell bad. I just did a total remodel on a home, and we pulled up everything. It was stinky. It was terrible. So we put luxury vinyl floor in there, and it's working out great. I would prefer tile, so I have a solid surface and there's nothing porous about it, but never carpet. I would just do epoxy if I could, but I would just do throw rugs throughout the entire home. And if you can, and you're doing it new, get 2 inches of rigid foam that's rated for the right PSI you need to put 3.5 to 4 inches of slab on top of that. And you're going to be thankful you did, because you're not going to have cold wicking. And that's going to get that slab a little higher. And that's a real plus. I would do that if I was building new with a basement right now. But keep in mind, when you do that, you're going to change your elevations. You're going to change your door, window elevations, all of that. So make sure that when the foundation walls get poured, they go up that extra 2 inches, or they go up the extra 3 inches. So you have the exact elevation you need on the plans. Always watch out for that.
More questions.
Okay. Camille, what are some things that could be done post-construction while living in the home to save money? We will be all on crawl space and plan to brick veneer later. What would be similar projects? Yeah, the crawl space, cleaning it and to do a full envelope of the crawl space would be fine. Cleanup post-construction is always a big savings. I've got a cleaning crew on a job site right now. They're doing windows, and one crew's doing windows and another crew is cleaning the house. You don't want to know how much I spend on that. I don't have time for that. All right. If I was an owner builder, of course I'd want to do it.
That's
But
what we did.
But I'm going to probably spend around $1,100 on the interior cleaning because cleaning a job site is pretty brutal. And then I'm going to probably pay around $600 to $700 to have all the windows cleaned. Right there, that's about $1,500 to $2,000 that you can save. And that's pretty much post-construction. So cleaning up is big. Hauling off trash is also big. I'm getting a dumpster removed on a job site tomorrow. And I don't want, because neighbors are using it. I'm getting tired of it. We're used it as much as we can. I'm going to take my trailer and I'm going to back it up behind the yard, behind the fence, and I'm going to save probably another $300 for a client by doing that. If you have a trailer or a dump trailer, put it where people can't get access to and dump stuff in. Again, these are just little things you can do by easing some. Try to stay away from the DIY and focus on the stuff that nobody else wants to DIY. Cleaning is the biggest one. Raking and getting rid of rocks and getting rid of rubble and that kind of thing. Nobody thinks about doing those things, but they're big. Last question. RJ, what are your thoughts on encapsulating of a crawl space? Recommend it? Yes and no. In some climates I do, in other climates I don't. If you've got a low water table and it wants to come up, then encapsulation might be beneficial if it's done right, and only if it's done right. I'm typically not a fan of it because you're just building up moisture, and I'm the kind of guy that if moisture is going to come up and I've got a 3-foot crawl space, I'm going to want air come through that home. I'm going to do a before and after final video of a pioneer home I did. And I have 4 cells, concrete cells in the ground, okay? I had to create a ventilation system to ventilate all 4 cells. It's like I have 4 crawl spaces and they're all completely is isolated. So I'm actually creating a venting system inside this whole building. And the more air movement I have moving across things, the better off you're going to be with avoiding cold condensing surfaces and also mold and moisture buildup. So I've seen beautiful encapsulations in crawl spaces, and then I've seen them done horribly wrong. And then I've seen 4 inches of pea gravel that's washed nice and clean just before framing is done, and then that's just fine. That's great. The worst thing you want to do is have a stem wall and nobody grades that. Nobody does anything clean to it. Your plumbers and everybody are trying to get underneath there. There's a big boulder there and there's crap and garbage over here. And you're trying to get through all that and it's not an even field. The best thing you can do is to rake it smooth, get rid of all the trash, all the boulders, and bring in some pea gravel and level it off. And you'll find that all that air moving across that pea gravel, even if you have some moisture coming up, is going to be just great. It's going to be just fine. So anyway, that was the end of it.
Okay.
End of the live chat. Any question you have?
We gotta go.
We're done. Thanks everybody. We'll guys see you again next Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And again, go to howtobuildyourownhome.com. If you're interested in an hourly, just a single hour consult, I do that as well. And again, take the First Steps course. If you haven't explored how to build or owner builder and you're just starting, take that class. It's very affordable and it gives you a really good starter and it gives you a real good headwind. So check it out at howtobuildyourownhome.com. We'll see you guys later. Bye.